to the MTL Sports Podcast. We are on episode 28. All right. So for today's episode, we will be heading over to the NFC because we just finished up the AFC last episode. So we will be heading over to the NFC North. We will break down that division, give you our division winners, what teams might possibly make the playoffs this season, and then also we will break down the positional groups, let you know who's the best quarterback, receivers, running backs, etc. And then once we're finished with that, folks, we will head over to our rapid fire where we got a little jam-packed session for you. There's a little bit of breaking news in terms of, other sports media personalities, where they might be going. You will soon find out. And then also we have our good old trivia. So, Lawrence, if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's get this thing popping. NFC North division breakdown. All right. So for today, we got the NFC North. We got the Vikings. We got the Packers. We got the Chicago Bears. And we have, did I say Detroit Lions? We're the Detroit Lions. All right. So let's break it down, starting with schedules, starting with division winners. Lawrence, I'll let you go first. First, let me hear the winner of this division this season. And then let me hear all the records for the rest of the teams.
So I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep it straight. I'm gonna go with Minnesota as another division winner again, but not by much. So I got Minnesota to win the division at 10-7. But it's gonna be a gunfight with Detroit at 10-7 as well. So I got both of them finishing 10-7 based on what I did. Wow. And I also have both Green Bay and Chicago finishing 6-11. So I got two playoff teams in Detroit and Minnesota, and I got two bottom feeders in Chicago and Green Bay.
Okay, good stuff. I'm right there with you as far as the Vikings winning the division. Had them at 10-7. The Lions, though, I had them literally right behind them at 9-8. I think for the Lions, I was really torn just between their schedule. I think I had them like splitting a series. I think let me check there. Yeah, I had them splitting like the Vikings games, going 1-1. And then I believe I had them splitting the Packers games as well. So maybe if they can go 2-0 versus the Packers, get the 10-7 and then tie the Vikings. And then it just comes down to whatever tiebreakers each teams have over the other. But as of right now, I foresee Vikings winning with Detroit right behind them. Then also I have, let's see here, pull up my notes. I have the Packers going 7-10. They did just lose their, I don't know if you want to call them the best quarterback in their history or the second, whoever you're a fan of. But got them going 7-10, a little bit of a rebuild, retool type of year for them. Jordan Love did look good. I did say that last episode in his first preseason game against my Bengals, but I think it's going to take him a lot of work to eventually get to the top of the division. And then I got the Bears. I got Bears Nation at 2-15.
2-15.
They're just bad. I'm sorry, but Justin Fields is still going to be running for his life. I'm sorry. He does have DJ Moore. The Bears, they stole your guy, but yeah, I guess it's a hot take because you were surprised. Yeah, they're going 2-15. He's still running for his life. They only got one offensive lineman for the guy. He needs like 4 more. So he's going to be running. He might pass Lamar's record. He might go back-to-back 1,000 yards rushing for a quarterback, which is pretty impressive, but not for the correct reasons, right?
I mean, that is a hot take. I thought my Chiefs one yesterday was a hot take, which it is if he gets hurt. But regardless, just to guess the team goes 2-15 is insane to me. But to each his own. I think once we do the roster breakdown, you might look back on it and go, because Chicago in some departments is kind of gifted compared to other teams. So
Yeah, not where it matters most though, or matters second most. All right, so let's. I did division winner. Playoff winners. I think Detroit might sneak in as a wild card, but I don't know. Do you think 9-7 can do it in the NFC?
9-7 gets you in the NFC.
Okay, so yeah, all right. Let's book them in there as well. Probably a wild card, probably that 6 or 7 spot. Moving on to the position breakdowns. Let's start at quarterback. I start this one off. So we got Justin Fields for the Bears. We got Jared Goff for the Lions. Like I said, Jordan Love for the Packers, his first year fully starting. And then for the Vikings, we got Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk Cousins definitely, even though he has his playoff woes, he's still the best quarterback in this division. Still puts up numbers, has the best receiver in the NFL. So he's going to put up big numbers. Then second, Jared Goff. I think it's pretty clear. Jared Goff had I would say rebound season, because when his last season for the Rams wasn't the best, all right, but he definitely rebounded his first season with the Lions, or I guess his second, right? Because the trade was 2 years ago, so his second season with the Lions.
His second season, but his first season he got crumbled and crushed. But he got a new coach, and it all changed.
Yeah, so he did pretty good last year. I think they even rated him a top 10 quarterback or just outside. So, when we did that quarterback list a couple weeks ago, but yeah, he's second, third. It's literally a toss up.
One of them was ranked in the top 100 players.
This is true, but like I said, he runs for his life, so I think that's what helps him. So, all right, let's pit that guy, Justin Fields, third, and then we'll put Jordan Love fourth. But okay. I don't know. I think Jordan Love might have a better season. The offensive line's better.
Okay, I'll tell you where you're wrong. Jared Goff is the number one quarterback in this division. The Vikings got lucky and won a lot of close games last year. Detroit just happened to not win as many. So that's a big takeaway from the Vikings. But you look at the stats, they almost had the same amount of yards. Passer rating, Jared Goff is actually a better quarterback in terms of passer rating. And then in terms of touchdowns to turnovers, they both threw for 29 touchdowns, but Jared Goff threw for 7 interceptions and Kirk Cousins threw for 14. So if we're going to talk about close games, those 14 interceptions are going to be pretty important. I get it. You have Justin Jefferson, but Detroit also has, sneaky good weapons at wide receiver as well. More of a plethora of them. Vikings are kind of, one strong, couple solids. Detroit's just straight up solids. I'm going to go with Jared Goff being the better quarterback, but then it's going to be Kirk Cousins right after him. No big slouch there. I'm going to go Justin Fields next, and then Jordan Love, just because if you look at the history of it, Packer quarterbacks their first year never do very well. Statistically, they do okay, but record-wise, they just never do very well. Aaron Rodgers' first season, he went like 6-10 or something like that. So, I think Brett Favre actually had a winning record, but his stats didn't also say that as well. So,
okay, I respect that. To your point about the Vikings winning close games, a lot of those games was because Kurt, brought them back. Didn't they have that big comeback game against the Ravens where they were down was it the Ravens or the Lions where they were down 28-0 and then they came back?
That was the Colts.
A lot of that was Kurt. That was Cousins.
A lot of that was the Colts having a mental breakdown and just quitting on the season, and Jeff Saturday being the coach.
Hey, that might be true, but that was pretty impressive. And I think they were the team that had the most victories decided by 3 or less points. So,
most of the time those things don't translate to the next season very well. So,
okay, that's fair. But we're basing off last season, so that's what I'm gonna go with. Running backs. Now, Vikings, their running back is gone. All right. The Lions, one of their running backs is gone. I think the Packers still have their little duo of Aaron Jones and what's the other guy's name? I'm blanking right now.
What do you mean you're blanking right now? AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones,
Yeah, AJ
the
Dillon.
quad
Okay, thank
master.
you. And then the Bears, their guy left as well, right? Or they traded Montgomery, or did he get traded, or did he just leave?
Montgomery's on Detroit now.
All right, so there's a lot of movement and running backs in this division. I'll let you go first. Who has the best running back core in this division?
By far, Green Bay, AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones are by far the best two. I'm going to take it next down to Detroit, which is differing styles. David Montgomery. They got Jahmyr Gibbs. And they also have Muhammad Ibrahim from Minnesota. He's most likely going to be a punt returner and a kick returner and stuff like that. But he was really good when he was at Minnesota. He was a really good watch. Then it gets kind of questionable because you kind of don't know how the Vikings running back room is going to look or how it's going to do. Just because it's a lot of youth on there, the only returning important piece is Alexander Madison, but he's never been a prove it every down kind of back. We'll see that one going forward. So I'd probably just rank Chicago ahead just because they got Justin Fields, Khalil Herbert. I mean, not Justin Fields. It's Justin Fields, Khalil Herbert, Deontay Foreman. I'll just rank them above them just because of the small facts like that.
Okay, I respect. I think I'm going to do the same. Packers first. That's a dynamic duo. I still think, they're still going to put up some yards, the both of them. Then we got the Lions, like you said. And then, I think Vikings are last for me. Is just Madison's unproven. He hasn't been a full workload back before, so it'll be interesting to see. So I'll pick Bears third with Herbert, who actually did pretty well when Montgomery kind of, took a back seat for the most part.
They're going to be fine. An interesting piece on the Minnesota running back group is Aaron Dykes from Richmond, University of Richmond. I actually know about him. He's pretty good. I doubt he makes the roster. He probably makes the practice squad, but
okay. Now, if we're gonna include quarterbacks, the Bears might shoot up there, but we're not gonna do that. All right. Moving on to wideouts. Now, this is like you said, we got one team with full out superstar, another team with an all-star, and some other solid pieces. Then the other two teams are kind of up for the debate here. So, I'll take this one first. I'm gonna go. Gotta go to superstar, man. I'm gonna go Vikings first. Justin Jefferson is literally like 2 or 3 receivers in one. This man is just amazing. He had what? I think he averaged like 100 yards, or he averaged some crazy number last season. One offensive player of the year, just outstanding. And then Jordan Addison, he's a rookie. We'll see what he can do. We're including tight ends, so we know Hawkinson. Even though he was left out of the top 100 list, just barely, he's a really good tight end. Osborne, we'll see what he can do. That guy,
you see
Triple
Blake
J
Prohl right there. You see Blake Prohl.
Who's that guy?
He came from the XFL.
Oh, look at him!
I know, man. He's pretty good. He was really good in the XFL. He was probably like top 3 wide receiver in the XFL. He's also the son of Ricky Prohl. Former important wide receiver on multiple teams. I think he's like a 2-time Super Bowl winner. So he comes from a class of his own. Yep.
Yeah. So Vikings first. Second, we're going with the All-Star and his sporting cast. We're going to Amon-Ra St. Brown and the Lions. Remember, Jameson Williams is suspended for the first 6 or 7 games or whatever, and he has a hamstring. So hopefully that heals before his suspension lifts. But they have him. They have Marvin Jones Jr., ex-Bengal. Shout out to him. They got a couple other cats. I feel like the Lions have solid receivers, like you said earlier. And then, I mean, between the Bears and the Packers, like I said, it's a toss-up for me. I mean, Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs, they showed flashes at the end of the season, especially Christian. Like, he was going crazy those last couple of games with him and Aaron Rodgers trying to bring them back into playoff contention. But, yeah, I don't know. Do I want to go with DJ Moore and Mooney? I don't know. And Chase Claypool?
Mooney's just Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool. Sorry,
Equanimous St. Brown, Amon-Ra's brother.
He barely even plays. The only downside to Claypool, it just seems like he's not invested fully into it every season. He's always a letdown every season.
Definitely not in Pittsburgh because he made it pretty aware he wasn't happy and wanted to get out there.
And then Mooney is one of those. Mooney, in my opinion, is like a Gabe Davis. Like, he doesn't show up enough.
Very much so. Yeah, I don't know. I think with this, I'm going to look at potential. So potential with Jordan Love plus these guys heading to the second year. I'm going to go Packers third, Bears fourth. Also take into account Justin Fields is still going to be running for his life. So I don't know if he's only going to have like 2 seconds to throw the ball. So I don't know if these guys are going to put up outstanding numbers next season. What do you think?
I think they'll be okay. I think the problem with the team is going to lie in the fact that they're going to be, I'm just going to say they're going to be figured out. I think a lot of people have figured out the ways to get around and beat Justin Jefferson. I keep saying Justin Jefferson. Justin Fields. I don't think there's anything. That's just my opinion. I don't think there's anything exceptional about him. I think now they finally have a wide receiver that can do things out of the backfield, like DJ Moore can. But they're basically going to use him. Yep. They're going to use him the same way Carolina used him, and people figured out how to beat Carolina with him. So it's just going to be one of those years where DJ Moore goes for 1,000 yards somehow again, and we're going to be sitting here wondering to ourselves, was it a smart move to, stick with Justin Fields, and try to make it work, or should we have moved on? According to your prediction, they should have moved on with 2-15 as the description line. So, I mean, if we break it down to the next subject, which is O-lines. If we're going to break it down O-line, the best O-line is Detroit, probably Minnesota, Green Bay, and Chicago, or Detroit, Green Bay, Minnesota, Chicago. Regardless of anything, Chicago is in a league of its own at the bottom. And then Green Bay is questionable because, some important pieces he took with him to the Jets. I think he took one offensive lineman with him to the Jets.
And they're thinking about trading for the other.
And Bakhtiari, they're thinking about trading for him. But my only issue with Bakhtiari is the last couple of seasons, he's just been getting hurt, which is not something you really want to add to that Jets room as well, because, all they do is get hurt as well. So
they're suspect as well. Not as suspect as the Bears.
I don't see adding more limp into the room. I don't think there's anything special about Minnesota's offensive line, but there's also nothing bad with it. So I just think maybe teams need to try to focus more on O-line earlier in drafts in the coming futures, because something we did see in week 1 of highlights of preseason is all defensive lines, especially the depth, all look really, really bad.
Yep, I agree. And I agree with your offensive line breakdown. There's nothing more for me to add there. Moving to the defensive side of the ball, all right? We got defensive lines. I'll let you start this one off first as well. Who do we think has the best defensive front in this division?
Well, we're going to talk about top to bottom. You kind of want to go with Green Bay, just because some reason every single year they always find a way to be the best defensive line. or not best defensive line in the league, sorry, but in that division, they always seem like the best. But I'm just going to go on potential and coaching. I'm just going to go with Detroit again. I thought Aiden Hutchinson had a really good rookie season. He really can only get better, especially with his coach that he has. I think that it's a really – I mean, I get he's a linebacker, but the Jack Campbell ad to help stop the run, allows the defense in the middle to get more aggressive towards the quarterback. So I like that aspect as well. Minnesota did trade away some pieces. They're kind of trying to revamp that defense while also trying to stick with the offense. So I really don't know how I feel about that one. And losing Kendricks in the backfield for the linebacking core. Also, I get it. It's a linebacker. It's not defensive line. But that also, I guess, hinders the run game because he's a really good run stopper. So that's going to be something that the D-line has to focus on a little bit harder now because now you don't have a safety blanket right behind you. And if you look at Detroit, if you look at Chicago's D-line, it's all pretty good. It's something standoutish. A little bit of different pieces from around the league that didn't work out in other places, like Yannick Njoku. He's kind of bounced around. He's never really found a real home, but he's also never been a slouch anywhere he went. A lot of young guys on it, so they're obviously trying to revamp it and restart it. And then it's kind of the same with Green Bay. You got Kenny Clark coming back, obviously, but basically around him, besides TJ Slayton, it's pretty much a revamped group. So I'd probably say Detroit, Green Bay, because they always find a way to be good. Maybe Chicago, Minnesota.
Okay, fair enough. I'm going to go opposite. I think Green Bay is probably the best just because they're consistent, even though it's kind of revamped. I'm just going to go with just consistency. They always, like you said, they always find ways to be consistent, at least with the defensive front. The Lions, their biggest need, I felt like, was defensive line in this year's draft, and they didn't really address it. But I think Aiden Hutchinson pretty much solidified the number one pick. He's really good last season in his rookie year. So shout out to him. So I'll have them second. And then, like I said, the Bears and the Vikings, pretty much a toss-up, honestly. But I'll probably go Bears. Bears is just defensive culture. It's just what that's what the whole team, the whole history is built off of. So I'll go Bears third, Vikings fourth. The Vikings need a lot of help on defense because they pretty much are all offense, zero defense. So
that's also the question mark that I had for the team is like last year, their weakness was defense. And they struggled on defense.
Yep.
And what they do, they kind of dropped the important pieces that they had that made plays for them. I'm just going to say in like the linebacking core, the linebacking group for Minnesota just looks rough without Kendricks. I know there's guys there who, like Marcus Davenport, he technically is like a D end, but he works both ways, and Daniel Hunter can go both ways, D end, linebacker, but I just don't think there's like that it guy there anymore, which I guess now I moved on to the linebacking group. So just take you over to there. But see, that's the one thing that like, okay, so we're kind of moving to this league now where like, defense is hindered by the fact that like the offense can do whatever they want. So it's like, oh, defense is less important. As long as I bend and don't break, that's all that matters. Well, the problem is like, if you look at the defense, you look at the linebacking core, like, yeah, Tanner Vallejo is pretty good. He's been there for a while, so he knows the room. Daniil Hunter, has been there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But they lost their big, general back there in the backfield. And you look around the rest of the room or rest of the division, you actually have important players that actually make differences on their team. Like in terms of the Bears, their linebacking core, even though it doesn't have like big name tickets, they always seem to find a way. They bring Tremaine Edmonds in there to try to shake things up.
Yep.
That's a great general to have back there for your team. Green Bay always has a good linebacking core. Like they just always seem to have a good defense overall. But I think if we're going to break it down, we're going to have to say that in my opinion, with the addition with Tremaine Edmonds and the rest of the team being kind of young and smart last year, I'm gonna go Chicago first, Detroit second, and that's just because I'm really big on how they played last year. The guy from Iowa, Jack Campbell, is extremely good. I've watched all his games. I'm a big Iowa fan. Then I'm going to go Green Bay, and then the big glaring weakness is Minnesota's linebacking core, which is not going to help their front four.
Yeah, not at all. Like I said, Vikings are zero defense, all offense. And this year, they aren't doing themselves any favors. Hey, but we don't know. Maybe they can pull off a miracle and try to at least stop teams. But I'm going to agree if you have nothing else to add. But it was a really good pickup by the Bears, though, to get Tremaine Edmonds, take him from the Bills, bring him to the Bears. Because I feel like the Bears, one thing that is always true about them, they always have like at least one or two like solid linebackers. And Edmonds is arguably like a top 5 linebacker. So really good pickup for them. He'll only help that defense.
I just think it's just a really good general to have back there to tell you what to do. I think it was extremely good.
Especially as a Mike, he's going to be the signal caller for the most part. So he did a really, really good job over in Buffalo. So it will definitely translate. I don't think it's a bad pickup at all. Really good. Defensive backs, our last category. I'll take this one first. Now I feel like Packers are number 1. Jair Alexander is really, really good. I think we all know that.
Russell Douglas right beside him is pretty good.
Yeah, on the other side of the field, yeah, really good. Their safeties are solid. Then everyone else, I feel like in this division is pretty much lacking as a defensive backfield. So yeah, Packers number 1. We already know Vikings are last. Between the Bears and Lions, though, I felt like between the two, I felt like in more Bears games, their corners were pretty like not locked down, but definitely put up a fight against opposing wideouts. So I'm gonna go Bears. Second, Lions third.
I am not gonna. I know there's a whole lot I could say, but in terms of like position groups that are important, safety is like one of the most important, and I feel like Vikings have the best safety in the division. I just don't think that they have any piece around that safety in order to make it prosper, make it meaningful, which is really sad because Harrison Smith is in his 12th year. He's 34 years old.
Getting up there.
I mean, he's been like, for most part, our whole time we've been watching football, he's been around. He's been important. He's been doing, his thing in order to make a name for himself. It's really depressing that C.J. Gardner-Johnson finally gets a breakout. This is kind of like my defense to, I guess, be like a captain for. I think that's probably what they were going to bring him in for. And then he gets hurt. I don't think it's like season ending. I don't think it's like, I don't even think it's a long injury as well. But the fact that he's just not going to start with them is a little depressing.
Yeah, I would agree.
But I will agree with you. I will say that cornerback room, it's like a landslide. Green Bay has the best corners. I will say their weakness probably is safety, with Darnell Savage probably being like one of their best safeties. But it's not a bad safety to have. So I just think they could do maybe a little bit better in that department, in that room.
Yeah.
And then the weakness for overall, I think the weakness for the Bears is their safety room. Like Eddie Jackson is not the Eddie Jackson that he was about 4 years ago. So I'm probably going to go Green Bay, Detroit, Vikings, Bears. I don't trust the Bears outside of their front and outside of their linebacking group.
Okay, fair enough. That is it. I think we're at the end of positional breakdown groups. Any last final thoughts about this NFC North? I think we both, like we said, we both have the Lions and Vikings making it out this division, but is there like any surprises that we might see? Like, is there one team who might just totally surprise us, do you think? Whether
I
that's
think
for the bad or for the good or for the bad?
um I think a team that may surprise us a little bit is Green Bay, because when you got a younger quarterback, kind of in a new offense,
Hmm.
they kind of struggle. They don't score a lot of points. Um, a thing I see that might be a problem with them is I'm going a little deeper dive and I'm looking at their kickers, and they got a rookie kicker from Auburn. Their longtime kicker is finally retired, finally hung up the cleats. Aaron
Yeah.
Rodgers left him, so no need to hang around. Um, so we might run into the fact that Green Bay gets down the field and they can't score points, which might also lead to their demise. And then also piggyback off that, you look in the room for the Lions, they don't really have any great kickers as well. So we're also looking at them to be, a really important team down the stretch, winning a lot of games. If they don't have like a serious place kicker, because they got a rookie from Virginia Tech and they got a third-year guy who I've never heard of, Riley Patterson, as their kicker. We don't know. They might screw up in important situations and ruin those games that the Minnesota Vikings could win. Those really close games. That might be the deciding factor for Detroit. And, there might have been 2 or 3 close games they could have won if their kicker just made kicks. So I think that's something to look at in this division. I think, they say special teams is like it's really important to win. I remember the 2010 Chargers had the best offense and the best defense, but they had also one of the league's worst and all-time worst special teams, and they didn't even make the playoffs. So,
Yep. Special teams wins or loses games, so you definitely have to have a solid special teams. It's very, very important. All right, well, that's our breakdown of the NFC North. Next episode, we will tackle the NFC South, so stay tuned for the next episode for that. But what we got coming up next for you guys is rapid fire and trivia, so please stay tuned. Alrighty, and we're back. Time to start rapid fire for you guys. First topic, we have some somewhat breaking news. It broke today, so we'll say it's breaking news, y'all. Shannon Sharp, Uncle Shay Shay, he finally has a landing spot. He is moving over to ESPN. He will join Stephen A. Smith on First Take. So basically, he will be joining reportedly Mondays and Tuesdays for the NFL segments. We don't know if he's going to be joining other shows like NFL Live or NFL Game Day or any of the other shows ESPN has, like Pat McAfee or whatever. But this is a part of ESPN's little revamp of their morning shows. They got rid of KJM. So now it's just going to be Get Up at 8, First Take at 10, and Pat McAfee at noon starting September 7th. So, Lawrence, how do you feel about Unc Shay Shay getting a spot at the table on First Take?
I just don't see. I mean, personally, I don't see him doing well with Stephen A. I just have a hard time seeing anyone doing well with Stephen A. He's just kind of I don't know, sometimes an unreasonable character to go against. You know, sometimes like people who bring in too many facts, they don't work well with Stephen A. because if Stephen A. is disproven by your facts, he just screams and yells at you the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's not really something Shannon's been known for, to have like just facts lined up. Shannon's more, he's been there, done that. He knows the game kind of brain, which also might become a hindrance factor as well. I'm just getting that from just the way he talked with JJ Redick. Like, in my opinion, I think JJ Redick made Stephen A. Smith look like a clown a couple times
on multiple occasions,
just from him being on the show. In which I don't believe JJ Redick goes on the show very much anymore, because
no, he still does, but
not like he was at one point. So once you do Stephen A. like that, he doesn't really care for it. But I think it helps Shannon move to doing afternoon football stuff and something like that. Kind of like trial and error runs. Still questionable why they cut certain people away from ESPN, Van Gundy, Mark Jackson, and they kept people like Dorsberg. It's questionable. We were talking about it earlier. We were talking about Kendrick Perkins.
Yeah.
Absolute clown show. So there's just certain people that you're going to cut the good ones. I get it. You got to, trim some of the money, but they with their ESPN Plus, they do a lot of work and put a lot into that ESPN Plus. So I understand that's important to them. But I feel like they could have done a little better. But we knew that, they were going to make a big deal out of, what's his face, Pat McAfee, because he does do College Game Day.
No.
That is, not talks, but he's more likely going to become Lee Corso. Not become Lee Corso, but take his spot when Lee Corso eventually has to retire. So we all knew inevitably that was going to come. So, but they had to get rid of all those people just to, fund one guy is just questionable.
Yeah, very questionable. In terms of Shannon, I feel like it's a great spot for him, great landing spot. Unfortunately, it had to end between him and Skip, but just, between some of the things they were going through and arguing about, and sometimes the show was just unwatchable, honestly. Undisputed was just unwatchable just because those two were bickering too much and wouldn't let each other talk. So it was inevitable that they split, but now he's on ESPN. And I think he stated off screen that, hey, Shannon's not going to be a workhorse, at least at first. He's just going to be straight up first take Mondays and Tuesdays. And then I guess depending on ratings and how well the fit is, they'll slot him into NFL Live, which comes on after NBA Today. Eventually that will happen. And then eventually he'll move to NFL Today, the morning show on ESPN before the 1 o'clock games on Sundays. So I feel like it'll be good for him. He doesn't have to be like the main talent. He can just do his thing. Now, will they let him be full on Unk Shay? Probably not. It's still Disney. It's still the mouse. So I doubt they'll let him full on bring some yak and some some Black and Miles on the set. But we'll see. We'll see how much creative freedom he has. It's a good move for him. But like you said, like getting the bag to Pat McAfee, and they're cutting people like Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy and some of the other people they cut like Max and Keyshawn and I think even Jay Williams got cut too, or his contract didn't get renewed, and then they're keeping people like Doris and Kendrick and Malika Andrews and all the controversy she brings, and then it's just a lot. I don't know how to take it, but moving on. Skip, this is pretty old news, about 2 or 3 weeks old. Skip is going to be bringing Undisputed back, and when he does, he will have Richard Sherman and join him for the most part in the NFL segments, and then reportedly Rachel Nichols will be a part of the show in some capacity. I'm not too sure that you're familiar with her, but she'll be there, and then Lil Wayne will be there every Friday. How do we feel about this new Undisputed without Shannon? Will it be the same?
Well, the question is what are they going to do for NBA? Who's going to bring? Is that Rachel Nichols? Like, no offense, like, I'm not going to want to listen to what Rachel Nichols has to say.
Yeah.
I think like only a few people get to have like the ability to talk about NBA who weren't in the NBA kind of thing. Just because the viewpoint that you see most NBA players have of the game, and then the people who never played it, they're so different. Like the way JJ Redick looks at it, and the guys on TNT, they look at it a completely different way. And you got the clown shows like Kendrick Perkins and stuff like that. Like they just look at it, they're just in a stupid light. But no, I think in another way, like I think it's gonna be maybe it becomes like one of those things where he kind of moves away from talking about NBA. I doubt it. But like you said, they're probably going to shorten the show, probably, or
Yeah, I would say
something of the
so.
sorts. But like, I don't know anything about Rachel Nichols. If she's supposed to be the one that talks, if they're gonna kind of make Skip be more like Colin Cowher and just have him talk. I don't think Skip's one of those people who can just talk and take over a mic and just talk about nothing for a long time. Skip also doesn't have the repertoire of people to bring on the show like Colin Cowher does, so it's weird. It's kind of like changing of the guard because now it seems like Skip's no longer the guy, like the I wouldn't like the top of the food chain at Fox anymore. I feel like the top of the food chain has now kind of moved to Colin Cowher. So,
Yeah, I would agree.
and he kind of gets to do and say whatever he wants, especially with that Dwayne Haskins thing that you said that 25 and under quarterbacks are never going to win a Super Bowl. He's like we talked. I don't think he ever apologized for it. I think he just kind of let it slide and hope people didn't notice what he said. To be fair, he probably didn't even write it. He's probably just reading off a teleprompter, and some guy typed it up, and that probably got fired. But regardless, he could still make an apology over it. So
Yeah, I didn't, like I said, off air. I didn't watch him that much to begin with, but that basically solidified me never watching him again. But yeah, I think you're right. Colin's definitely top. I feel like there wasn't even an argument before. It was Skip and Shannon, like they were pushing the hell out of them. Now we'll just Skip Bayless. It's gonna be a hard sell. I know. I mean, in reality, there is a lot of people that like Skip, and there's still a lot of people that are going to tune in, at least in the beginning, and see how it is. But it just won't be the same, and they're going to probably focus more on Colin. Nick Wright is probably an easy second in terms of top of the food chain. Nick Wright is growing in popularity. His takes are getting better. His show is actually really good as well. So Skip is probably going to move into third place. Richard Sherman, I like that fit. He can talk football, played at a high level. Rachel Nichols, hopefully, like you said, she's not the main person. I'm assuming it's going to be like a combination of her, Eddie House, who's on there occasionally, and they'll probably make Chris Broussard come in for the NBA. And then every Friday with Lil Wayne. I love Wayne, my favorite rapper of all time, but him with Skip every Friday for 2 hours, like he can talk sports, but can Lil Wayne like carry the show for 2 hours every Friday? Not like once a month,
Can Lil Wayne keep a conversation for 2 hours?
He can, like he's like talkative when he goes on the show, but my thing is like he goes on the show like every once in a while. He's gonna be on there every Friday now. Like I don't see how that's
after like 7 episodes. He's still gonna be able to keep going, like because he's gonna have to do like there's 52 Fridays in a year, roughly. So he's gonna have to do it 40 times a year probably because they take off a couple times and he's gonna miss some episodes here and there. So like 40 a year.
Probably so.
It's a lot.
That's a lot. So we'll have to see how that goes. My guess is Skip will probably still have a show, but it won't be 2.5 hours. They'll probably go to 2, and then depending on how it does, he might just have an hour show. I wouldn't be surprised if his show gets cut to like an hour and a half or an hour, like halfway through. Probably not through NFL season, but like next year when they're like deep into NBA season, I can definitely see the show moving to like an hour at most. But yeah, that's it for Rapid Fire today. We don't have any in trivia. Sorry guys. Just didn't have time to come up with questions this week. Stay tuned for that trivia questions next week. This is the end of episode 28. Lawrence, do you have any final thoughts? I know you put in a over bet for the first preseason game of week 2.
I mean, you didn't have to bring that one up, because I'm sitting over here,
scrambling,
hoping it hits and stuff, and neither one of these teams can do anything at all. So it's a little bit disappointing. They're currently at 18. They're not even halfway through the third, but it'd be nice to see some ball movement. Every time they seem to do something good, either team, it's just a penalty. So
yeah, typical preseason football, ladies and gentlemen. That's why if I give you one betting tip, gambling tip, it's to not bet on preseason football or basketball. I don't do it. I've lost some change.
I wouldn't bet on teams. I just bet over and unders, and I just
You either win or you don't.
I just want to see some action. That's why I would bet the over. I'm just trying to look for some action.
All right, well, folks, either listen to me or listen to Lawrence. One of us is going to save you money. The other might or might not. All right, well, that's the end of episode 28. We'll see you next week with NFC or NFC South and some trivia, some other stuff. But until then, y'all, we will see you next time. Thank you for your support. And yeah, peace out.
Peace out.
Me wind and rain. You're some kind of bird.